They say hunting and fishing can be dated back more than 2 million years. Throughout the years, the historic angler and hunter has steadily evolved into the avid hunter and angler that we know and love today. Welcome to the Outdoor Defiance podcast. As you listen, you will hear comical stories, companies talking about their products, researchers talking about their research, and overall ways to help you become a better outdoorsman. Welcome to today's episode.
Hey everyone, welcome back. This week's episode is episode 17. This week's guest, one of our true American heroes. We've met this guy with Operation Freedom Outdoors. We've done 2 turkey hunts. The first one, which we can get in that later, didn't turn out in our favor, but this last one was unreal. This dude shot a turkey pretty much head off, so with his bow. But it was incredible. But this is Thomas. Thomas, thanks for coming on today.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
So we've been going out to Operation Freedom Outdoors for, I think, 3 or 4 years. And Thomas, you've been on, or is it 4 years, 5 years now? Gunnar, I'm losing track of time. I think it's been 3.
Yeah.
It's been 3. And then for 2 of those years, you've been out there for the turkey camp. And it's been awesome, like the first year until like just seeing this year, just seeing the growth of like how comfortable we are to get around each other and start talking about stuff. So I'm ready for this episode to open up. I really think Thomas can relate to people that a lot of people won't be able to. And I think it's very important because that's what we're trying to do, is to cover all the bases. So, but with that being said, let's just go ahead and jump in it. And Thomas, kind of tell us, like how you were raised and kind of, what you're raised in, go over like if you were introduced in the outdoors and, you kind of told me you didn't even know there was a fishing rod for the longest time. So go over that, and then we'll start from there.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Oklahoma City, city boy. And funny thing is, my dad, he just loved noodling, and so as far as I can remember, I noodled, and it wasn't into my, I think, young teenage, like middle school type era where I was like, hey, there's a fishing pole. And I remember I think it was about 9th grade is when I asked for my first fishing pole, when I knew there was a fishing pole. I was like, oh, I had to get in the water and noodle. And I was like, I could fish from the bank. And I remember about 9 or 10 years old for Christmas, I asked for a fishing pole, and I got one of them. I remember, the plastic encased little fishing pole, this little tackle stuff, all ready to go, all in one. Yeah. And I took that thing to the local creek just down the street in the city, in the creek. So I fished the creek for years. So it's pretty funny. I went to noodling to, oh man, there's a fishing pole. I was like, I'd rather do that.
It's kind of backwards from what most people do.
Yeah, I'm just noodling though. Noodling's really good experience though. But,
oh yeah, we love to noodle.
And so fishing. First experience with anything outdoors was noodling, and then fishing on local creeks.
What was one of the bigger catfish you pulled out growing up that you can remember?
Let me tell you this. So we the Canadian River, now the Oklahoma River down in Oklahoma City. So around Penn and western area of the Oklahoma River, which was formerly the Canadian River part.
Right.
Underneath like the railroad tracks that connected and holding the railroads up, the posts that go into the river.
Yeah.
My dad sent me in a hole. He was like, "Oh, it's a big hole. It's kind of, too small, go in there." And so I go in this hole, and I kind of like feel around, and then he'll go up behind me. Like if I come up and like, "Hey, yeah, there's fish in there," and he'll go in there and like, hook them,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I went in this hole, and I was scared. It was a narrow entryway, but it opened up, and it was like And so I went in there and I felt around and I was like, oh, there's nothing in there. So I go out and I was like, there's nothing in there. And he was like, oh, let me check. And so he moved this brush and made the opening bigger. And he went in there, and after like maybe 30 seconds, I see his legs like, I remember my dad's legs kind of jerked and stuff, and I was like, what the heck? He comes out and pulls out this like huge flathead. That sucker, it had to weigh as much as me. I remember that thing was like as big as me, and I was like, what the heck? And he was like, there's two of them. And so he hands us, and we put it on the stringer, the big one, and he goes back in there. My dad pulls out another one, big, these huge. And I was like, I was just in that hole. I was like, holy smoke, these things would have swallowed me.
Yeah, I bet that was a surprise.
Yeah, it's two huge flatheads. I was like, yeah, I can't believe you sent me in there. I was only about 8, 9 years old. I was scared, man. I was like, what?
Is there one that you prefer? You prefer, flatheads or blues? Like, if you could choose one to catch, like a big old flathead or a big old blue?
It don't matter to me. They're all good eating.
Yeah,
I love catfish.
Yeah. Blues are a little meaner.
Yeah,
usually.
I want to stay away from those 10-pound blues. Get out of here.
Yeah.
I hate the channel cats with them.
Yeah.
The fins. Man, I've been stuck so many times by them fins. I hate them suckers.
Yeah.
I haven't really ran into a lot of channel cats noodling. I don't know if it's just because of the area or the water I am in, but everyone I've talked to, they've been like, have you ever got into a channel cat? I'm like, no. And that's what they all say. They're like, we've been stuck by them.
I took Tucky 2 chains and we couldn't get out of the channel cat.
He deserves that.
we were on call. I'll say it. We were at call, and we were noodling, and it was like every fish we found was a dadgum channel cat. So
that's funny. I haven't really caught anything big. Like I think my biggest probably 30 or 40, but I'm ready to break that. I lied. We caught the 50-pounder last year, which I blocked the hole. I helped pull the stringer out. I didn't grab a hold of them, but so I don't know if that counts. I don't think it counts. I'm not counting it. But I've definitely not ran it. One time I ran to a fish and he was so big that when I put my hand in the hole, he was facing opposite way. His tail was there, and his tail was just waving, and I could feel it up here and I could feel it down here when it brushed against me. And I was like, oh man! So I reached up and touched it, and where his tail met the back of his fish, which if you guys fish, you understand what I'm talking about. It's the narrowest part in their body. My hand was like this on it. And which I was younger, my hands are smaller than they are now, but I touched that and I came up, my buddy was there and he's like 6'6" Goliath. And I came up and I was like, dude, you got to go get this one. I'm not getting it. And he went down there and I got to the backside and blocked. And that thing spun around and shot out on him. And he's like 6'6", 250, 280-ish, maybe bigger. I don't know. And it moved him like it was nothing. It was a monster. I mean, this hole was huge. Once it left and we felt around in it, I was like, holy cow. I don't think I'm ever going to put my hands in this hole again. I mean, it was huge.
It's only the hole I was in. There was 2 of them suckers.
Yeah. Yeah, we pulled out 5 one time in a hole. The river had hit this rock and just washed out this rock area, and there was only one way in, one way out. And it was one of the only holes they can get out of the current. And they'd go in there, and we pulled out 5 flatheads, but the biggest one was like 32. So that's fun. I definitely love noodling. I'm ready for it.
Oh,
yeah,
I love it.
Yeah. So you started fishing, and of course did you go to the high school down in Oklahoma City somewhere? I'm guessing.
Yes. Yeah, I went to Southeast High School and down Southside Oklahoma City. Went there
and did you play any sports?
Yeah, so I wrestled since I could remember, like 6th grade all the way up to my senior year. I wrestled, and now I played football, but I only started playing football when I was in 8th grade. So wrestling was kind of my first love sport, and then got in 8th grade because the coach was like, "Oh, I need you to play football."
Right.
And so I played football through high school, but my main passion was wrestling.
Yeah. Did you win any state titles or anything, or?
No, I really, what I learned was, I had some good wrestling coaches, middle school and high school, but it was mainly volunteers coming in and teaching us, basic stuff. And so what I
Right.
learned is at tournaments and everything, I always placed like fifth at regionals and never made it to state because I just didn't. I was strong, but I didn't have the technique or know what I was doing, but I
Right.
loved it. And
What class would that have been? Like 4A, 5A, or is it considered smaller?
Southeast, we were 4A about a few years, and then we went 5A.
Yeah, that's a tough division to even wrestle in. Or any
Like
sport,
Tuttle?
honestly.
It's like Tuttle. Or
Yeah.
they
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, Total,
Tuttle.
all them. It was.
That's a
Tuttle's
powerhouse.
It was wrestling all them guys and Bishop McGinnis and all these schools.
Yeah.
I was wrestling these dudes, and they're like, "Man, you never been to state?" I'm beating them, and I was just like, "Man, honestly, I don't know what I'm doing." Like I'd wrestle. See, it's funny because I'd wrestle and talk to guys. These dudes I'm wrestling. I'm like, "Oh man, you need to show me that after this." And they're like, "Hey, shut up, man." And I'm wrestling. They're like, "Hey, shut up." And I'm sitting there like,
That's
asking
funny.
them, like, "Hey, show me how to do that after this and stuff."
You just beat my butt, but I need to learn that.
I mean, they didn't beat me bad, but it was just kind of funny. I talked to these dudes and always told me to shut up. And I was like, "Hey," I just made friends. Or my school, we had a small wrestling program, and so made friends through all the the wrestling community in high school. And what I learned is from other guys that been formally trained and know what they were doing, and I was just I picked up and learning off of that. And I mean, I was pretty good. If I would have joined like a club and was like actually like hands down taught and all
Right.
that, I think I would have flourished and been a lot better than I was.
Yeah, it's crazy to even see. I have a buddy that got a coaching job this last year at a big known school, and they just brought wrestling back out of nowhere. And I never really thought of it not having a wrestling program. And that's what he was saying. He said one of his best wrestlers was a senior, and he hadn't wrestled since like 5th grade. And the guy went in place. I don't know what he plays to state, but he was like, "Isn't it sad that guy is probably so good that he could have went and got college paid for?" And he's like, "It's just upsetting to me knowing the potential in these kids, and we're just not getting the hands-on that they need." And it's crazy to even think about that's still a problem. And even like I said, there's a big, well-known school around here. So yeah, that's crazy. It's just crazy sometimes, if it's just like the what ifs, But
Yeah.
at what time, if going through high school, did you kind of sit back or not even after high school? I really don't know when you decided, but when did you decide to join the military?
I think I decided around I think it was like my junior year. Like I wanted to go do something,
Right.
So 9/11 happened when I was a freshman.
Oh,
So
wow.
it tells you how old I am. So I was a freshman and I was in JROTC at the time too. So we had Air Force JROTC, and so I was in a JROTC program, and we were on a freshman. We were loaded up on a bus to go on a field trip. And the TV and the news was playing on the bus, and then what everybody saw, what you could see on the news is the plane hit the first tower, and then watching the news hit the other, and we delayed to this field trip. It was like, what in the world's going on? And so our field trip was delayed, and then we eventually went to the field trip. It was, and then after we got back to the school, the JROTC, they told us like, don't wear uniforms, because we had a set, I think 1 or 2 days we wore the uniform, and it was like, don't wear the uniform. go in regular clothes or whatnot. We're not until further notice, don't wear the JLTC uniform and everything. So 9/11 happened when I was a freshman in high school. In my junior year, I wanted to join, and I didn't even think about the Marine Corps. I was just wanted to do the Army. So I talked to an Army recruiter, and but this guy never would like call me back, and always try to show up and like, hey, I'll go to the recruiting place, meet you up. He wouldn't return my phone calls, and then when I showed up at the recruiting office, he was never there, and I was just like, man, this dude is just like, he's flaking out on me. Who's this dude? And I remember, I played, like I said, I played football, and I was a wrestler, and I was, a cocky dude in high school, and I was leaving the gym one time, and I see this Marine. He's like standing out there. He's about to walk into the high school, and I was like, "Oh, Marine Corps, huh?" And he was like, "Yeah, what's up?" I was like, "I don't know, what's up?" And I looked him down, and he just squared me up too. And he was like, he was just like,
Yeah.
He's just like, "What's up?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about joining. I want to join the Army, but this recruiter," and this is what got me. I was like, this recruiter won't return my phone calls, and he's just like, leave me hanging. I was like, I'm down to join. And then this Marine, this is what he told me. He said, I'm gonna let you know, the Marine Corps will never leave you hanging, and they will always have your back. A Marine doesn't leave another Marine behind. I was like, is that right? And he was like, I guarantee it. I was like, well, let's go, sign me up. And he was like, and so right then and there, what he told me, he was like, we'll never leave you hanging, and we'll never leave you behind. A Marine will never. And I was like, okay, let's do this then. And so me just walking by, squared him up, and I was like, I'm trying to join the Army. And he was like, oh,
yeah.
I squared him up, I looked him up and down. He looked me up and down. He was just like, like not intimidated by me. And so it was like, and so I was like, all right, let's go. Let's see what it's all about. And did the whole, he came to the recruiting office, and he was like, they do their spew, like, oh, do you want to travel? Do you want job security stuff? Going to the whole, spew of the whole recruiting, how they're taught. I was like, you don't have to do that. I was like, just sign me up. He was like, well, what job you looking for? I was like, the hardest job you got. And he was like, that's infantry. And I was like, well, let's go. And I was like, what's infantry? And he was like, man, you're the grunt. You're like the you're everything. And I was like, well, let's do that then. And so I went in as a 03XX, meaning I could, when I went in and when I graduated, I could be anything the infantry has the offer. So when you go in, I was open contract infantry. So I had multiple options to go whatever route I wanted.
Yeah. So
and then 2005 I graduated, and then within a few months after graduation, I was on a plane going to San Diego, MCRD, recruit training battalion, second recruit training battalion. And so 2005, late 2005, and graduated late 2005. And then beginning of 2006, I was an infantry training battalion and did my infantry training. And then next thing you know, I'm on a bus on my first duty assignment. 29 Palms, California. So the funny thing, they sent this on this bus at night from, so where we were at was northern, Camp Pendleton is like basically northern San Diego, and if you go north Pendleton, it's where we were, it's like Orange County type, San Clemente area. And so on the weekends, well, all I'm doing is seeing beach and all kinds of crazy stuff all of the West Coast and the Pacific Coast has to offer.
Was
And,
that a shock for you during that time? Like when you got up there, was it just like a shell shock of just the different terrain?
oh man, like you're talking about the citywise and everything?
Yeah.
Oh, so one weekend, we had off from training, and I remember just walking, and I'm talking on my cell phone. It's kind of late at night, and I'm just following my friends. They were just going wherever, and I was like, it was dark, and the only time let me backtrack a little bit. So the first time I ever seen the beach in my life. From being from the city, was in recruit training battalion, and we do weapons field training battalion. And when we this a hike or hump, what we call it, they go through the base, and the base is borderline Pacific Ocean. And so we went and next walked, and we humped, parallel to the Pacific Pacific Ocean. And I'm in recruit training battalion, and I'm like in it all. I'm like, oh my God, I'm on a beach. I'm like, can't look around very much, but I was just like, oh, I'm on a beach. I'm looking at the sand. I'm like, oh man, look, I'm on a beach.
Yeah.
it was funny. So my first time, seeing the beach and the ocean, I was in
wow,
boot camp. Yeah, I was in boot camp.
Yeah.
And, so go back to infantry training battalion. And so that was the first time like touching the beach. Actually, just the sand. We didn't get in the water or nothing. And so I'm in infantry training battalion on the weekend, Liberty, and I'm following my friends. And next thing you know, I hear waves crashing, and then I'm like, wait. I'm talking on the phone. I was like, wait a second. I was like, where are we? And they were like, oh, we're at the beach. And I was like, we're at the beach? I took off my shoes, and I was like, where's the water? And they're like, like 2 feet in front of you. And I can see the moon, and it's shining, and I can see the waves. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm at the beach. I stepped foot in the ocean for the first time. Infantry training battalion on a weekend at Liberty. Wow. I was like, I just ran through the water. I felt it. It's kind of a new experience where I was just like, oh, it's the ocean. It's kind of pretty funny.
Is the water up there? Was that where it's cold? Isn't the water really cold up there?
It's cold.
Okay, because I had family that lived up there, and I was pretty sure that when the first time I went was up there to see the ocean, and we wore wetsuits to like skimboard and all that. I remember, or I didn't. I was too little, but I remember seeing my family in wetsuits and doing all the stuff out in the water, but couldn't remember.
Yeah. I've always heard it's pretty cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cold. I think it's like 60 or so.
You ever see any sharks?
So on at Camp Pendleton, there's a real popular beach that like all the service members and retired personnel and stuff can stay and go see on the beach. It's a beach in Pendleton, San Mateo, or I forgot what the name is. Literally, it's at the beach and swimming in the ocean right there, and then we'd leave. The next day, the news hit. And it was like a Marine on Camp Pendleton catches a 6-foot great white off of San Mateo Beach or something. I was just out there. I was like, what? So I was like, oh my God. I was literally just there. I was like, it was like, I'm not swimming in that again.
Sharks are a little bit different story than a flathead in a hole.
I thought there were some great whites.
Yeah,
that way. That's why I asked. I thought that's where they are, California.
Yes, I was literally the same beach. It was like some breaking news, like some Marine caught a 6-foot off the beach, and I was just there, and I was like, yeah, I'm not swimming there again.
That's funny. Let's take a break from this podcast and talk about some awesome products.
Hey folks, let me tell you about GritKnives. They're not just your average knife company. They're all about high quality, affordable, and unique products that'll make your outdoor adventures legendary. From limited edition pocket knives to rugged fixed blades and precision scalpels, they've got it all. Plus, their logo wear will have you repping the brand wherever you go. So whether you're out in the field or tackling everyday tasks, trust GritKnives to be your go-to for top-notch gear that won't break the bank.
Are you looking for some of the best sounding turkey calls on the market? Then look no farther than JAG Calls. Since 2022, Team OD has been using their calls and have had great success doing so. Two of my personal favorite calls are the Mother Clucker and the America. And I mean, if it has a name like that, it must be good. Check out JAG Calls, that's JAG Calls, out at jagcalls.com. Hey, and while you're at checkout, use OD 2024 for a discount. Once again, OD 2024 for your discount.
Now let's get back to today's episode.
So, how long were you stationed there in California?
So California, I was stationed for 8 years. So I did so I was in the Marine Corps 8 years, and I did all 8 years in Southern California. So 29 Palms. I was there for 5.5 years with 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines, Indian Company, and that's where I did my 3 tours. So I did 2 Iraq and 1 Afghanistan.
Wow. I mean, from our talks, you pretty much were like you were in it. Like it was you and the enemy. It wasn't like you were over there just doing, you were facing the fire, and that has this. I don't know. I can think about it, but I can't imagine being in that in the moment, And I'm going where I'm going with this is, you were trained to do all this, and I still don't think 100% the training can get you to the mindset of until you get out there and boom, it is like was that a whole different like aspect, like you can get trained to a certain point, but there's a different story when the other guy's actually trying to take you down, right? So like were you out there and then like boom, like you're like, oh man, this is like holy cow, did it ever like hit you like that?
So I was thinking about this not just the other day, actually. So when we got there and we relieved the company or the little platoon that we were at, this BP Veracruz is where I was at, and we were on the border of Syria.
Mm-hmm.
So we relieved this platoon as a little bitty base, and it was joint with the Iraqi army. So it was like a platoon reinforced with Marines. We lived in these things called HESCO barriers. And it's basically just some type tarp cloth canopy, and they put sand and dirt, rocks, whatever in it to be like a barrier. And what they did was just put a roof on it and filled with sandbags. So we lived between these HESCO barriers and the sandbag roof, and that was our protection. So we relieve them, and after I can't remember, it's been long ago, but a short period of time that we get there, we go on our first little op. We leave the wire. We're back at this. So my squad and us are in the back of this 7-ton, and it's got some armor on the side. It's kind of like this on each side of the armor, and then like only our heads can peek up. Our heads right here can peek up and see. Yeah. And so we're in this little convoy, and we're trying to go in this, I think, a couple clicks away. This is a little town, and our convoy, we get stopped. There's an IED in the road. So an IED is in the road. So we go first time leaving the wire. There's an IED in the road, and there's some village. There's like a small village we're overlooking because we're by the Euphrates River, and I was like towards the cab. So I was like second or third one towards the cab, and there's all of us, lined up facing one side, and the opposite side they're lined up facing the other way. And there's like a little hill to my back, but the side I'm looking at is the little village, and I'm just shooting the shit. I didn't, we're on patrol. We're in the combat zone. And we're shooting the shit and really think like, oh, there's an IED, I think I was 19. I think it was 19 at this time. And I was just like, yeah, blah, blah. And then so the minute we got stopped by the IED, we're shooting the shit. Within minutes, I hear, and I was like, I look up and I see the smoke of a rocket rappel come straight at us, and it went over the head of us. Boom, and it impacts on the behind us, and there's like a little hill. It hits the hill because the hill's only like about 100 yards away or so from the road, and it goes. Shh. I was like, oh shit! And then like our guns are down. We didn't even have holding security. I'm such a boot, man. And then my squad leader was like, get them guns up, I'm just like, what the heck? And I saw it and where it came from. And I was like, it came from that first little, that little hut right there. He pieced, he ran off or whatnot. And so we dismount off the 7-ton and we get online and we go and just like clear it. And it was some makeshift like RPG type stuff that he shot at us, and that's when I knew I was in the shit. It was like within less than a week of us relieving this platoon, and we on the first patrol, an IED, and then we got a rocket shot at us, and then from there it was just IEDs. My little platoon and our little group that was at this BP Veracruz, we found the most IEDs I think in all of Anbar province.
Wow.
Iraq. It was like so many IEDs and so many caches and stuff that we found. It was like deemed the most dangerous place in the world.
Golly. So how I guess a good question like I have is how do you go about defining even IED? Like I couldn't even begin to tell you like what takes place to even find one.
So we get trained in our workups for deployments. Obviously, to look out what to kind of look for in IEDs wise. But there's usually there's some type of battery power trigger mechanism, so to ignite it,
right,
and stuff like that. So they would homemade explosive. They would make them out of like fertilizer and nitrate and stuff like that, and then they'll pack it in like barrels and pack it tight. They hook copper wire, and one time the copper wire for the battery, because we were parallel to this road that we were at, parallel to the Euphrates River, and so some points the Euphrates River only be like maybe a quarter mile away, some would be like eighth of a mile, and some would be like 1 mile, 2 miles away from the river. So it was always like, like kind of slipping in the river, Euphrates River. And one time we found the IED, and they try to hide the wires to detonate it. And there's always somebody watching and connecting the wires to the battery, to go off and try to get us. But one time we found the copper wire and traced it back about almost 2 miles to the Euphrates River. Like they ran like two strands of copper wire about 2 miles and hooked up an IED in the road. So they were dedicated to try to take out Americans and kill whoever.
Holy cow! I wonder how long that took to even do that. And when you guys were like driving along, like were you guys going pretty slow, or was it kind of sped up and you guys just kept your eyes peeled?
No, so the company, I don't want this marine company that we relieved. They wanted to get out of there so quick. They were like, "Hey, good luck." We relieved them, and they were telling us to drive balls to the wall as fast as you can and not hit an IED and stuff. But luckily for us, they were getting blown up left and right and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
you can't find that stuff going so fast. And so luckily for us, we went slow, and then there was something on the road that looked suspicious. It was automatically like, "Ooh, stop," and then we do this thing, where we do our 5s and 25s, look 5 yards in front of us, 25 yards and beyond. So you don't like if we dismount, it's like automatically open the door, look below us. Won't step on like some something right there by the truck. So we would look on the ground before we step out, look up, look around in front of us, look below, and then so that's how we were trained. So we were able to find multiple IEDs on our deployment because we took our time, and if like an IED was found, like stopped and hold security until our EOD team came and disposed of it. Disarmed it and disposed of it, and so we were luckily, for the most part, we didn't have too many casualties in our deployment.
Wow. Yeah. What was like one of the biggest ones you guys found? Like, was it normally like barrels, or did they go to like even more extravagant sizes?
I think they would. What was it? They buried like I would say like 5-gallon bucket size full of like explosive. Like when we'd find one, the EOD team would be like, "Oh, it's about 20, 100 pounds of explosives and stuff like that." So it was in between like take out a Humvee for sure.
Right.
And
man,
so
that's crazy.
Small quantity, like 20 pounds to up to like 100 pounds of explosives that we were finding.
Wow. Would like 20 pounds, is that big enough to take out like a Humvee? Like, or like what?
You can blow out a Humvee tire and stuff. Yeah, it would disable it.
Wow. And that was what their goal was, to disable and then attack, or was it just to disable it so you can push farther?
It was, I think, because we always try to push towards. So the direction that we always tried to go was towards town of Ramadi, and the more we tried to get towards Ramadi, the more IDs we found, and it was like we couldn't go past a certain point for the first few months of our deployment. That village that I told you would find the ID, they would put one, we would leave, dispose it, blow that one up, and they would put another one back in there. And we could never go past this village for like a good few months until we had to get our sniper team inserted, and they went to the Euphrates River area, and so our sniper team was utilized as a reconnaissance team, and they saw the guys. They would get on across the river on a boat and take the boat on our side of the Euphrates, and they were bringing the explosives and all that stuff. Everything they need to hook up the IED. So these like a little team was bringing it over, and we didn't catch them until a few months into the deployment. And finally, as soon as we basically our team was able to dispose of the 2-man team, and as soon as they got rid of that 2-man team, we were able to push further and go there even more little villages and stuff.
Wow.
And for the first few months, we weren't able to pass.
All because you said 2 guys, like a 2-man team. Wow.
2-man team just setting IDs every day. It was like every day almost. They would just bring it over and just set it up. We could never go past this village.
Can you imagine that just being like your own, like that's what your job is? It's like, hey, I have to. That's wild. And then just like the whole 2-mile deal. Like I never thought of it ever being near that far. That's been like crazy, And I'm guessing the 2-mile long copper wire wasn't something that was normal, right? Or were you guys finding them that long normally?
It would be 2 miles or quarter mile. Yeah, their main thing was so where we were at, they weren't sophisticated as the RFI IEDs where they like I don't know if you do your research,
right?
Just, general public knowledge that they use like cell phones and calling and tripping devices.
Right.
So ours was mainly manually set off as copper wires ran, and it needs to be to the power. And they would try to judge us how fast we were going and try to set it off and blow us up. And then the pressure switches. So the main ones was manually set off or pressure switches. So, and the pressure switches basically the battery powers there, 2 strips with like a piece of wood or something separating the conductors. And then if our tire ran over it or if we stepped on it, they would touch and then set off the ID. Yeah, pressure switches and manual set off.
So, like, say on that one that was 2 miles, was that like did they have like high ground or something to be able to see that far, or were they like what were they trying to time there if they couldn't see? Because that's long distance.
Yeah. So what they usually do, so if they're back that further, they set up markers. And so say if there's like a house as a marker, and they know, and they would put test vehicles out and drive, and say they would drive a certain distance, and they would count like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, traveling at this speed, about 5 seconds, I need to hook the battery up to set it off. So they had markers. Either they stacked up rocks as markers in the distance they could see, or they used a tree or something to judge speed and distance to be able to set it off. So
that's crazy. That's unreal. Like even just in the skill, just them having to learn that had to be hard to do, and just and then being able to try to do it, like I said, 2 miles away. They have to be pretty darn.
Yeah, so we were finding so much of their IEDs. And then the military developed this thing that we put in front of the vehicles. So it was like a mine roller type deal. So it was like a heavy set. So it hooked up to the front of our Humvees and 7 tons, and it was heavy, and it was full of wheels. It was like in front of us that go over the whole road, and so this thing would be in front of us, and so if we hit it, it would blow that up before it would blow the personnel in the Humvee.
Right.
So they studied us and saw that thing and judged the distance of that thing, and would put a pressure switch out like 20 feet, 10 or 20 feet in front, the pressure switch, but the explosive would be where the personnel would be in the cab and stuff. So the pressure switch would be in front, and by the time we could see it, it was like it would our roller would hit it, but the explosive would be back where the personnel are and stuff. So they got kind of sophisticated in studying our ways. But luckily, on our deployment, in my platoon, we only took what was it? About six or 7 KIAs.
Yeah. Wow.
So killed in actions. So
it's even sad to hear that number. I mean, it makes my stomach upset alone. knowing that someone had to go through that just to fight for our freedom. But so you said you did, was it 2 in Iraq or
Yeah, two
1 in
Iraq.
Afghanistan?
Yeah, 2 Iraq, 1 Afghanistan.
How long were you in each one? Like how time period wise?
So I told you late 2005 I was in boot camp, and late 2006 I was on my first deployment. So within a year of me even stepping my feet on the yellow footprints in boot camp, to about a year later after that, I was already boots on the ground in Iraq.
Wow.
So early 2005, so around 2005, 2006 was a push for troops to be deployed, and it was a surge. And
Right.
At that point in time, I guess there was a shortage until the surge came of people in the military. And so I was there, my first deployment, we got extended. So we were only supposed to be there 7 months, and we ended up staying eight and a half or so months. And so within a few months we were there, we were told we got extended. So
wow.
when we were there, it was like we were just reset from the beginning. It was like, oh man, we were like a few months deep. Now we're back, like basically like we're only a month deep.
Yeah.
And so it kind of sucks. So in the Marine Corps, we only deploy short periods of times. Unlike the Army, they go about a year or so, and then they come in, do R&R, and then they go back out. But the Marine Corps, we do 7 to 8 month deployments. And so my first one got extended. We're about 8 or 9 months, I believe. And then a year or less, we came back, and about a year or less, we did our workup, and we were out again in Iraq again, and then came back after about 7 or 8 months, and then 8, 9, so about a year and a half after that. And then next thing you know, we're in Afghanistan, and Afghanistan was popping off.
Yeah, man.
And so Iraq was about second deployment. Iraq was kind of not as hot, it was still pretty dangerous. And then Afghanistan was popping off that they need, military personnel in Afghanistan. So that was my third deployment. Find myself in the Far province in the hills of Afghanistan.
Wow.
How is what does it look like in these other countries? Like, is the weather completely different than like here? Like, is there anything you just hated about it? Like, was it like 110 degrees in the middle of the day and negative 20 at night? Like, how is it over there? Give me an idea. I have no idea.
Yeah. So the weather in Afghanistan, when we were there, it was the nights were really cool, and the daytime, like, it was like 110 temperature wise. 100 plus degrees in Iraq. Both my deployments we were there. It's really hot. But Afghanistan, I was in the mountains up there. In the Afghanistan, I think I tell a lot of people that experience was the coldest I ever been in my life.
Wow.
Yeah, somebody else I had talked to, I was actually in class with him. He had been over there, and he was like, it's ridiculous. Like, he told me the same thing. That's why I asked.
Yeah.
And
it was the coldest I ever been.
Yeah.
Afghanistan.
That's crazy because all you hear about is how hot it is. I never even would have guessed that, honestly. Are like the mountains there, they like kind of have, like, is there layout any similar? Like, is there anything similar about any of the mountains here, or is it way different?
I'd say like the whole Arizona, like New Mexico type. It's sharp,
dry,
jagged rocks, dry. You know what I'm saying? It's just
kind of like Lawton, maybe.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, yeah,
I mean, bigger mountains, I'm guessing, but I'm just saying like how rocky it is, or
Oh yeah, rocky and desert. That's how it
wow.
is, and all the villages and everything is, they're all just connected to either type of water source or river and everything. So
Yeah. Wow. So you spent collectively like almost right under or right at, I guess, 2 years actually on the ground, right?
yeah, I think I calculated this one time. It was like about 2 years or so,
Wow.
somewhere around there, a little over 2 years.
I mean, like I said, I can only imagine what's some of the stuff you've seen. And I was like, going into that, we told me, when you asked me if we would be interested in having you on, I was like, well, of course, because if anyone is listening and they can hear the story and how you got, how, I'm about to spill what we're going into, but how like how the outdoors helped you through everything. I think that's great for us. I think it's awesome for us to get this out there because there's not a lot of people that can relate or want to even talk about your situation. And that's one thing I've learned with Operation Freedom Outdoors is there's a lot of people that don't want to talk, and then when they do, like, it's always been like a setback, listen, like, holy cow, like, I don't even need to be in the same room with these guys because it's just unreal stories, and I've never had anything like that. But so you said you served about 2 years, give or take, actually, on the ground doing all this stuff, and saw some pretty traumatic stuff. And you come back, kind of what go through, on your way back, like, what were you going through, and like how, I guess, go into how the outdoors kind of helped you out.
Yeah, just being so when you're there, you're deployed and you're doing workups and all that stuff, your mindset is there, and it's just it's the part when you're like getting out, and next thing you know, it's it's you, and and that lull of like you're not in that fight or flight mode, and you're just in it. Now you're like get out of service, and you're out. You're a civilian, so it's that getting out, and it's that low where you're not in that mindset of like always constantly on guard. When you get out, you're like, you still feel that where you have to constantly be on guard. And I remember the first few years of getting out of the Marine Corps, and back to civilian life, and I moved back here to Oklahoma. It was the a typical military stuff, I didn't like crowds. I didn't like to talk to people. I didn't like. We go to restaurants, I was just like always looking around, and right. I still do some of the stuff still where I keep 1 foot out in the aisle, and that's just to be for quick movement and everything. I know if you ever eat at a restaurant with me, you'll see I always have 1 foot outside. My one leg is not fully in the booth or where I'm sitting. I'm sitting at a stance where I can move quickly. It's just little things that first responders do too. It's just like quick reaction. So military, police officers and stuff, we kind of have some similar experiences. They deal with here in the States, deployed. So it's like that lull, and where it's just you, and then you're on your own, and you don't wear that uniform every day. You don't have you have to pick your own clothes out, and stuff like that, and with depression and all that stuff, and I found myself where I was like, I want to hunt. Being in the infantry, I shot rifles since 2005 to 2013. When I got out, it was just like I shoot a rifle. My last year in the Marine Corps, I did a rifle and pistol marksmanship for Marines and recruits. And so I was like, man, I just thought, anybody could pick up a rifle and shoot this thing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I was like, I wanted something challenging, and I was like, bow hunting. So I was like, oh, what is this bow hunting? I wanted to get into it. I never had a bow, didn't know what to do, but I was like, I want to bow hunt. And so I went to a pawn shop and I picked up a PSC Viking at a pawn shop. And that thing is like a brick.
Yeah.
So this old PSC Viking brick bow, heavy. And I didn't know nothing about, the having arrows cut, my draw length, type of broadheads or anything. I didn't know any of this. The whole hunting, especially bow hunting, Discord community, I didn't know anything about. And but I wanted to be a part of it because I was like, man, it seems challenging.
Yeah.
And I remember I went out in my father-in-law's property and stood up. I had this bow that I just bought from the pawn shop, and I had the arrow, and I literally like stood there in a tree, and I went in the morning, and I stood and sat down by this tree, and I was thinking, I was like, what if a deer does come? What am I going to do? I don't even know what to do.
Yeah.
And I was like, how am I going to shoot? I never shot this thing at a target. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I just got into the pawn shop. So I was like, literally, if a deer would have came, I would have either wounded it or something bad would happen. And I didn't know what I was doing. This is a true story. I just pawn shop, went out there, and I was just like, I don't even know what I'm doing. It was just wild to me where I was just like, I'm gonna go bow hunting, and then
Right.
I find myself sitting out there, and I was like, wait, I don't even know what I'm doing. And that's at that point where I was like, man, I need to watch YouTube videos. So I went to YouTube, got my YouTube education on bow hunting of how to tune or what to do and arrow length and all this stuff. And so at that point I was like, no, this bow is, I don't think this bow is not right for me. I was like looking at it, researching, and I was like, this thing is old. I just realized, I bought this thing. And so I went to H&H in Oklahoma City, and just looking at their bows and stuff. And so I got me a Hoyt. So my first brand new bow was a Hoyt Nitro 30. And so that was my very first out of the box bow. And watching videos and everything. So at this point, I did a couple of months of research and everything on this, and got the bow, and the guy helped me tune it. One of the pro guys down there helped me tune it, my draw length, and cut my arrows and everything. And at this point, I'm like, I can do this. And I go to that. By this time, I have a feeder set up in that place where I went, the same tree that I sit at, where I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I put a tree stand up, so I get a feeder out in the tree stand, and out there I'm set up. Now I'm equipped. I know. I did my research. I've been practicing, so I sit in the tree. My first deer I ever killed was with a bow.
Wow,
that's
awesome.
And just the bow where you have to hold it, you have to be calm, you have to, just be still, don't move. The whole doing the research, scent blocker and stuff. It's just like, while I'm researching all this, how to hunt, it just all like, I was like, man, this is all a lot about like, man, when I was infantry, infantry, when we recon and see where we're going, it's like going on Onyx, seeing where you're going to hunt, like, and stuff like that. Like, oh, the map, okay, this is where they're most likely to move through, and then in the Marine Corps, most avenue of approach. And I remember it's funny is when in the Marine Corps infantry, especially when we set up a little like a little range card. So So I remember sitting like the tree stand, and I have a little sketch pad, and I have a rangefinder. I'm drawing everything that's in front of me, and I'm range finding the like little bush, and I draw a little bush, and it's like 25 yards. This little, oh, this one's 40. The tree line's like 50. It's about as far as I can go. You know what I'm saying? And then in the fire pan sketch, you draw out the lines of, okay, 20 yards, and then the terrain in front of you. And you're like, okay, my max effective range is here. You know what I'm saying? And so I already, sitting in the tree stand, I'm like, okay, the deer are going to travel this way or whatnot around this time. And I was like, oh, I know it's pretty sunny. I don't want the sun in my eyes and stuff like that. And everything just, that whole part is all what you taught in the military, in the Marine Corps, as an infantryman. So if you ever, find yourself doing, reconnaissance on Onyx, seeing like where they're most likely, supposed to move, like, where they're bedding down and all this stuff. And then you do the whole stop, smell, look, listen, you know what I'm saying? It's the same, you want to cover your scent. You can smell them, smell that deer, you know what I'm saying? That certain smell. The noises they make, or the brushing, 99% of the time it's a squirrel or something, but the noise, it's just all like, it all just like felt natural. Like, oh, this is what I did in the Marine Corps, doing research. Like, hey, you know what? This is kind of like, like, man, I felt like at home, like,
Right.
This is something, to relate to. And so like other military personnel, if y'all listen and watch this or whatnot, and just know like, the hunting community is camaraderie in the military. And that's why these organizations get us together and introduce us. You never hunt before, just put in for it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you don't have a rifle, like somebody's going to bring you a rifle. You know how to shoot. You put that crosshairs on there and shoot in a certain area, pull the trigger. But if you got a bow, you're going to do your research, bro.
Yeah.
But the whole bow thing is just like, you have to, take your time, and you got to stay calm.
Yeah.
You get that shakes where you're like, oh my gosh. I experienced that a lot, where I was like, I couldn't shoot because I had to, let go of my draw, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm shaking too much, It's like, and so that the whole. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna ask. It because you said it was relatable to your time over there and doing that in the Marine Corps, picking the bow. Perhaps was that like, you've kind of touched on it. Was it like more of like the challenge that you saw with the bow, like I can figure this out type thing, like it's gonna keep you busy type thing?
Yeah, 100%. Putting a bow where I was just like, when the one from the pawn shop where I, drew it back, and I was like, man, what the heck? It's like when I first drew it back, I was like, what the heck? How do I do this? I'm like, what am I doing? Like, and just the whole, the challenge of a bow, it's just like you have to be focused. Your hand placement, you draw that, that anchor point, and just everything has to be set up. Level line is your, your broadhead, your spine, the kinetic energy, everything, your jaw length, all that stuff just all comes to play where you want to make that perfect, perfect kill, and you want to and get a good harvest, not like a woundy animal.
Right.
And everything. So just that the whole where you have to focus, take your mind off everything, and then you have to focus on all these little things, the anchor point, your draw, how long can I hold this back? What's my shoot? How far can I kill? Is this thing 40 yards away, or is it 50, 60? Am I going to chance it? Everything just, it comes into play where you just like focus, and you're not worrying about the other stuff, so
right.
all the white noise and everything and stuff, you just, you just focus. So as a combat Marine, and finding hunting, and this whole learning about this whole discord and the way hunters talk. It's like the way military talks in the hunting community. I mean, I think finding these organizations, that takes veterans out and all that stuff is get like-minded individuals together and just like, hey,
Absolutely.
and just just forget about all this other stuff, all that white noise, and just like that camaraderie and just and actual the feel of the hunt. So it's just all relatable, like a spot and stock hunt where you have to be focused. You did that reconnaissance, you know what I'm saying, where you're just like, okay, so they're most likely to come here, okay, you spot one, and then next thing you know, you're like, hey, I'm gonna go down to this hill, I'm gonna cut them off, whatnot, I'm gonna meet them. And it's just like, and when you're deployed, you see the enemy, you spot them, you know what you want to do,
Yeah.
It's the hunt. It's finding the peace and solace and the in it, and where you're just focused.
Right.
It's how
So-
it relates.
Yeah, and that I've had a lot of talks with my times there and just with other veterans, and they all it kind of sounds like the same thing. They say our time in, we were just drilled in our head of what to do. We were released to the normal life, and it was like we were still in our mind, like we got to do. And what hunting did was it took a normal situation of like life, and it lets you connect with it because you got to use what you were, however, if you spent 4 years or you spent 12 or 12 plus years in the Army serving, it's like, or the military, it's like they said the way they connected so much is they could apply it over here. And they say there's a lot of things in life that they can't apply that to. And that's something that like seems to bother them. And that's kind of what you explained is it helped you because you got to connect. You got to see how it works because for 8 years you were told this is what you need to do. You got to go to training. You got to do this. You got to watch your back. You got to make this move because if you don't make that move right, you might not come home, And it's like that's how hunting is connected to a lot of these people, and it's awesome to see that. And like me and Gunners, one of our biggest thing we like to do is help Operation Freedom Outdoors or any of these. Like it's not only them, we just connected with them because, like I said, we just get to go. But there are so many groups in Oklahoma, in your state. Just type it up. Just look, Google. I mean, the best thing you can do, Google or Facebook, and look at veteran hunts, veteran trips, just stuff like that. And I'm sure you can find it. But what we get out of it and what we get to see and what, like people like Thomas, people like all these people that we get to run into get out of this situation. It's just crazy to watch something that everyone, there's a whole side that looks down on hunting, how it's bad. But then you go do this stuff and the whole aspect changes in my eyes. So it's just awesome to hear that from your story. And you wrote, was it an essay you wrote about this or in college or?
Yeah. So my I wrote an essay of finding peace in the sport of chaos and how just a first person narrative of in the military and then how I found bow hunting and how that helped me out and the whole community doing research and everything. Like it just said, it's basically that I think about it. Yeah, my essay was on the basis and the thesis of that and everything. It's just crazy how this community relates, the hunting community relates to the military service. Because I met a bunch of guys, just through going out and meeting other people that hunt and everything. And I was just like, oh, where'd you serve? And they're like, oh, I never served. And I was like,
yeah,
man, it's just like the community. It's like it's a community like you can relate to if hunting and everything. It was like, oh no, I never served. It's just like, man, how did this is like
Yeah.
like-minded. This is pretty
Yeah.
crazy. That
We get
relate.
asked that every trip. I get asked that, and I always tell people like, "Hey, I'm not as man as you are. I didn't serve. I'm just here to help. To kind of give back. Do what I can to give back." And it's just funny because they're like, I've had that like, "You didn't serve," and I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Hey, hunting's taught you a lot," and I'm like, "Oh." I've never had to apply it in a real life, scenario, but I don't. It's like I still don't think I could do it. So, yeah, I commend you for like just being able to tell your story and finding an area. And I think that's something a lot of people are scared to do is try to to find an area. And they're like, I've talked to a guy at work actually yesterday about these trips, and he was like, well, I don't like I know how to fish, and I was like, man, there's no buts about these trips. Like, just go. I was like, they'll teach you. I was like, you have the guides there to teach you. Worst comes to worst, like me and Gunner in like 4 or 5 different group chats, with all different people that all the time it's going off of just veterans being able to connect. And that's what these trips are for. It's just the fun part is getting to go out and do, the fishing trips, do the hunting trips. But the most important part's the connections when you leave there, the people to relate with. So definitely look into this stuff. What group are you helping again, Thomas?
Yeah, so I'm the team lead for Oklahoma Hero Outdoors. And
Okay.
we follow us on. We got Facebook, and then we have a huge backing down in Texas too. So Texas Lone Star Heroes Outdoors, and so we brought it up here to Oklahoma. So Oklahoma Hero Outdoors.
Awesome.
Like I said, go ahead.
I just said awesome. Sorry. It's common. Yeah.
Definitely look it up. There's too many ways to plug in and get it on these adventures. You don't have to just put in for one nonprofit. You can put in for as many as you want within those nonprofits. More times than not, you can put in several different places. And I really haven't helped any other places other than Operation Freedom Outdoors. And I know, with them, they have, 6 or 7 trips scheduled at any given time. And you just got to keep up and keep putting in and keep putting in. And I'm sure that's the same thing with who you're with. And I'm sure that's the same way with other people. And I know there's also, I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but they like go on like trips around the world or trips in, the United States, and it's all paid for. So definitely if you're a veteran, I think it's an active duty too. I want to say
active duty, veterans active duty, and then a lot of them like my organization, we're first responders too. So
yep.
So you got the firefighters and police officers and the nurses, ER
Right.
nurses, you got that whole everybody likes majority, like to hunt and fish. So so you can get on trips.
Yep. And I highly advise it. What the friendships we've came out of this, I mean, Thomas, he's been on 2, and I mean, every time I talk to him, I learn more and more about him, and it's just funny to, in my eyes, the first time we met, I was just like, he's quiet, and I didn't really think of it as how it is, and then it's like this last time, it's like he pulled up and we're like, what's up, like it's, I love that. And it's not even only with us, it's just with everyone in the scenarios we've been in. So definitely look them up. Is there anything else you can think of that you wanted to go over, Thomas?
That was it. Just, how like y'all, me explain it, does it sound like, stuff you do? That's the Marine Corps infantry, we analyze the terrain, most likely avenue approaches, prominent terrain, key terrain, where's and stuff is all just relates to hunting. It's just like once you open that Pandora box, you just relate like, oh, I've done this. Oh, this is natural. A rifle and everything you can shoot, but definitely a bow. Like I said, you definitely take your time, your research if you want to be go on a bow hunt or a trip. Be prepared for that, definitely. But like a rifle, if you put it on any veteran, first responder or whatnot watches this and listens, just like if you don't have a rifle, you just put in for it and say, hey, I don't have a rifle, and they'll get you a rifle. I'm gonna go dove hunting or turkey hunting. I don't have a shotgun. I'm like, okay, oh, we got a shotgun for you. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what me and Gunner usually pack one on our trips, just in case. And there's been times it's been used, there's times it's been not. So yeah, definitely don't be scared to ask. I mean, the last thing we want is you to feel left out or in a dark place, and that's what these groups are for, to get you out, get you to people around, and to spread the enjoyment of the outdoors and just get somewhere where you can take, like Thomas said, that white noise. I don't know what personally is experienced like that. I have a whole different story about what the outdoors means to me through some family stuff. It's not what veterans go through, but I understand, when I was a kid, when my parents were going through their divorce, the outdoors were where I went because I didn't have to hear anything other than the birds and my thoughts. And that's where I really grew. And that's why I keep doing this, because I keep pushing it. And that's where, your guys' side comes in. It's like you keep doing it because you see where it helps. You see where it can be used as a free counseling, technically. I mean, it's not, you can, but you have to buy some stuff, but once you get it, it's the outdoors is free, and it's not the cost of the outdoors compared to some of the other stuff. It's not comparison, but you can almost get the same out of it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, but Thomas, thanks for coming on, telling your story, man. Like I said, it's been, we've ran into each other a couple times on these trips, and it's been nothing but awesome. We've had some great memories. I mean, from the first time oversleeping a little bit from a wild night before, and to the second time to getting out and shooting one right in the neck with your arrow or with your bow. I mean, it's been great, man. I mean, I'm great. I've gotten to know you. I'm great that you even felt like you could ask me to come on this, because I mean, as soon as you said it, I was like, yeah, let's get this going. So, and I know it's taken a couple times to get everyone on here, but thank you for your time, man.
Oh yeah, thank y'all for having me, and I appreciate everything you do for veterans and everything, and yeah, definitely continue what you're doing. And I know you volunteer your time, and you don't ask for anything, and that selfish act, means everything to this, to this military community and everything. It really means a lot to me. And I know, Gunner over here, our first experience together, I was so tired sleeping on a turkey hunt, and he was just calling away. He was putting me to sleep. That's how good he was on that call.
Yeah, no, we just do it to show the appreciation of you guys willing to sacrifice for us, and that's just what it all boils down to. I know a lot of people say stuff like that, but we truly mean that on these trips, and because even us donating our time, it can't repay what you guys are truly owed, in my opinion. So, but once again, thank you for coming on. This is episode 17. I hope someone got something from this, and God bless. Love you guys.